NTA International News.
Federal government gives automatic employment and scholarship to children of late Minister of State, Labour and Employment, holds valedictory session. House of Representatives calls for suspension of action on the unbundling of NNPC as it takes over the running of Kogi State House of Assembly. And towards sustaining polio eradication in Nigeria, vaccination efforts to be sustained. Hello there, it's good to have you join us on NTA International News. I'm Sarah Sander. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed that 2 children of the late James Ocholi be automatically employed by the federal government, while scholarship be given to the other 2 in school. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Babachir David Lawan, who announced this at the valedictory session of the Federal Executive Council in honor of its departed member, said the president also approved that the burial of the deceased be made a federal government affair. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Special valedictory session of the Federal Executive Council commenced with the presentation of the interim investigation report on the auto crash involving the late minister by the Co-Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Boboye Oyeyemi, which partly attributed the incident to excessive speeding.
Mr. President and Council is respectively enjoined to consider and approve the implementation of speed limiting device to avert future reoccurrence and make our roads safer. Mr. President, sir.
Thereafter, President Muhammadu Buhari reflected on the life and times shared with the late minister.
I was quite close to the minister, and I came to respect his hard work and humility. And I honestly was following his political development and so on. When he attempted to be governor of his state, I campaigned for him almost throughout his local governments.
Some members of the Federal Executive Council, in emotion-laden voices, took turns to pay tribute to their departed colleague, James Ocholi. They described him as a man of humility, strong-minded team player, consummate politician, and a patriot who was committed to the Change Nigeria project of the Buhari administration.
James has capacity for hard work. He believes in it. So for us in Federal Ministry of Employment and Labor, I don't know how we can fill up that void. One of his unfinished works was the monumental task of negotiating a deal to end the threat of healthcare workers' strike. It is my prayer that someone can complete this task. We will always miss him. That friendliness, that kindness, that simplicity, but that commitment to change and to our unity and progress.
Good people don't last very long, and I think this applies to James Ocholi. So I hope that we'll take a lesson from the life and death of James Ocholi so that we can leave a good legacy when our time comes.
James Ocholi's death has left a heartache that no one can heal, but only God can heal.
Let us not forget the other casualties of that fateful accident. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Ocholi family at this very sad period. We especially pray for the Ocholi children left behind. May Almighty God strengthen them in their grief.
Born on November 26, 1960, called to the bar in 1986 and became a senior advocate of Nigeria in 2007, as well as minister in November last year, James Ocholi, who died alongside his wife and son, will be laid to rest on the 18th of this month. President Muhammadu Buhari led other council members to sign a condolence register in honor of the deceased. During the council meeting, a minute's silence was observed at the instance of President Buhari in honor of the late Major General Yushau Abubakar, Chief of Training and Operations of the Nigerian Army, who died in an auto crash along Damaturu-Maiduguri Road. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Shortly after the Federal Executive Council meeting, members proceeded to the Kado, Abuja residence of their late colleague, James Ocholi, to condole with the family. Correspondent Salihu Abdullahi reports that Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Babachir Lawan, led the delegation. Here's his report.
The Kado residence of the late Minister of State, Labour and Employment, James Ocholi, is playing host to sympathizers. Leading members of the Federal Executive Council, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Babachiru Lawal, said they are in the house to condole with the family of the deceased. Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, spoke after the condolence.
National Security Advisor and all federal ministers were all here to solidarize with the family, show them solidarity. Tell them that all hope is not lost. Tell them that there's still hope. After rain comes sunshine.
Archbishop Sam Amaga, who received them on behalf of the family, commended the federal government's show of support and care to the family. He described late James Ocholi as a member of many families who will be greatly missed by all.
I appreciate the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for letting the entire machinery of the federal government visit James Ocholi's family. We are glad that there was such a show of concern. There's not much to be said other than praying for these little ones. That's our concern.
Members of the Federal Executive Council described the sudden death of the Minister of State, Labour and Employment, James Ocholi, as a great lesson to many people, especially public office holders.
We have seen the Federal Road Safety reports of the crash. Big lessons there, especially with convoy driving, government driving class, and the state of our roads. The lessons are there. Government will tackle some of the ones that concern us. Primarily, most of them concern government.
In Abuja, Salihu Abdullahi, NTA News.
Meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed optimism that the genuine brotherhood, solidarity and collaboration now evolving between Nigeria and South Africa will propel the two countries to greater heights in the overall interest of the African continent. The president stated this at a state dinner organized in honor of President Jacob Zuma of South Africa. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Making reference to the bilateral discussions earlier held between them, both Presidents Muhammadu Buhari and Jacob Zuma expressed the belief that as biggest economies in Africa, time has come for Nigeria and South Africa to take the responsibility of playing a more visible role in the quest for African solution to African problems.
We believe that Africa must rid itself of conflict and recommit to the goal of silencing the gun on the continent, not just by the target of 2020, but a lot sooner than that. This is the legacy that we owe our people and must not fail them.
Whether we like it or not, many in the African continent look to Nigeria and South Africa to ensure that the problems of Africa are tackled seriously and resolved.
The presidents also noted with delight that challenges militating against the two countries benefiting maximally from the goals and objectives of earlier agreements reached have been identified.
We do not only stop at reviewing the agreements, but more importantly, we also renewed our commitment and determination to overcome all obstacles that may stand in the way of our progress.
We are one people. If there are any difficulties that arise in this relationship between our two countries, we will confront those problems and solve them together.
The two leaders agreed that Nigeria is to host the meeting of the Binational Commission this year to review and consider new areas of cooperation. On the economy, President Buhari made a case for Nigeria and South Africa to come up with a robust and focused economic agenda backed with deployment of innovative strategies to tap into sectors where they have competitive advantage in order to turn around their fortunes in response to the global economic challenges.
We must act collectively and support each other according to our capability and country endowments.
My visit to Nigeria has a clear purpose. We want to cement the relations between the two countries at all levels, social, political, and economic.
President Jacob Zuma used the opportunity to formally thank Nigeria for selflessly supporting the liberation struggle of his country in the apartheid era. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who attended the dinner, spoke to newsmen on his impression of the Buhari administration so far.
I believe within the shortest possible time, Nigerians will now begin to see, the change that has been promised. We expect this month the budget will be passed, and then after that, activities will start.
President Buhari has been formally invited by the South African leader to pay a similar visit to his country anytime soon. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And from Senegal comes a report that African leaders have been urged to embrace science and technology as a panacea for the overall development of the continent. This is contained in a message President Buhari sent to the Africa Forum on Science holding in Senegal. He noted that no nation can achieve greatness without technological innovation that drives other sectors of the economy. He said Nigeria is not relenting in that direction as his administration is now focusing on integrated science and technology for the nation's economy. President Buhari is represented at the event by the Minister of Science and Technology. Now, the unbundling of the NNPC into 7 independent operational units, as announced by the Minister of State Petroleum, Dr. Ibe Kachiku, this Tuesday, continues to generate reactions, particularly from the legislature and industrial unions, which appear to have some reservations with that decision. Lydia Bassi reports on the minister's pronouncement.
In the new structure, 5 core divisions of upstream, downstream, gas and power, as well as ventures and refining groups will be business-focused, while reiterating that the changes are not fundamental and that there will be no job losses. The minister said there will be more engagement of staff at all levels to make them more productive. Ibe Kachiku says it is not unbundling into 30 companies as earlier reported.
The principle of restructuring, which was approved by the President, is that nobody loses work for now. We've obviously made some changes here and there to get it tighter, to get it more professional, to get it more focused, and some of those names will also be released. I know, for example, if I'm going to run through some of that very quickly, that for the upstream, Bello Rabi, for example, is appointed head of the upstream. For downstream, Henry Kemobi has been recruited to come run downstream. Refineries, and Nebo Kraga, who was treasurer, is going in there. Gas and power, Saidu Mohammed, who's coming from the Kaduna refinery, will take over that. CEO Ventures, Babatunde Adeniran, will be doing that.
The Minister of State, while apologizing to Nigerians over the reemergence of queues and filling stations, said everything possible is being done to address the issue.
As of today, we're doing literally 100% coverage. And that is because majors and some independents are unable to bring in product, some due to foreign exchange challenges, some due to cash flow challenges. But we've given out the license, we've given out the allocations for them to bring, but they just haven't. And if we stay where our mandate calls for, we'll have massive petroleum shortages all over the country. So we've sort of just risen to that game to try and bring in as much as we can.
While calling for more understanding of Nigerians, Dr. Ibe lamented that NNPC was established to provide 50% total of fuel requirements of the country, but is now saddled with the provision of 100% as the major marketers no longer import petroleum products due to exchange rate. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
I beg your pardon, that report was by Lydia Samson, not Lydia Bassi. Now, in a related development, the House of Representatives has advised the Minister of State for Petroleum and Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Ibe Kachiku, to suspend his plan of unbundling the NNPC. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
The members, in a motion moved at Tuesday's plenary by Representative Agom Jaribe from Cross River State, observed that the decision amounts to usurping the powers of the legislature. Such reforms, they argued, can only be effected through an executive bill to the National Assembly by President Buhari.
The House is worried that the Honorable Minister's pronouncement preempts the provisions of the proposed Petroleum Industry Bill, which has not been introduced in the 8th Assembly. The House hereby resolves to condemn the executive legislation by the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachuku, to the effect that he will unbundle NNPC into 3 different entities this week without legislative approval.
After the investigation, when we have the report, we can now debate based on the facts.
The House mandated its Joint Committee on Petroleum Upstream and Downstream to investigate the proposals and report to the House at plenary. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
In another development, the House of Representatives has resolved to take over legislative functions of the Kogi State House of Assembly following the crisis that rocked the Assembly in the last few weeks and is yet resolved. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo again reports.
Came as the House considered the report of the Special Committee to Kogi State Assembly on alleged illegal removal of the Speaker. Presenting the report to the Committee of the Whole, the leader of the delegation, Representative Pali Riase from Edo State, explained that in view of the fact that the Assembly can no longer perform its legislative functions due to the crisis, the House is therefore urged to take over the legislative functions of the Assembly.
The National Assembly should invoke the powers conferred on it by Section 11, subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to take over the legislative functions of the State House of Assembly, pending the restoration of normalcy in the Assembly.
Inspector General of Police need to seal up the place and put in police from Abuja here to make sure that that place is properly guided. Then we can now carry on with the legislative business for Kogi State, Mr. Chairman.
The recommendations are sufficient. The report is good, and we don't have to belabor issues.
Earlier at plenary, the House adopted a motion moved by Representative Abubakar Yunusa from Gombe State, urging the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to compel distribution companies to install prepaid metering system free of charge to consumers.
These prepaid meters were procured by some discos and refused to install them as promised sometimes last year for mischief purpose.
Members also resolved to investigate revenue leakages and operational deficiencies in the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, moved by Representative Jones Onyerere from Imo State.
NIMASA Act authorizes the agency to collect 3% of the gross freight earnings. Mr. Speaker, over the past 8 years, NIMASA has failed to pay in 3% of this levy, amounting to well over $10 billion, Mr. Speaker, into the Nigerian government coffers.
Another motion that was also adopted by the House is that urging the federal government to strengthen educational system in the Federal Capital Territory so as to accommodate low-income earners living in the Federal Capital Territory. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, has implored lawyers to assist the National Assembly in cleansing Nigeria's statute books of obsolete laws. He made a request at a meeting with a delegation from African Bar Association.
It's a clarion call on us, members of this profession, to once again put on our professional hats or caps and then try to craft a new order. And we can't do that based on what we have learned as individuals. We can only work cooperatively when we pull ourselves into associations like this.
The African Bar Association is the largest association of lawyers in Africa. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
The president of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, Mohammed Abdulaziz, will on Thursday visit Nigeria. As part of the two-day visit, a guard of honor and traditional firing of artillery gun salutes at the State House will be conducted on Friday. A statement by the Assistant Director, Army Public Relations, advised members of the public and residents of Asokoro and environs not to panic on hearing the simulated firing of military weapons. NTA International. When we return, Nigeria Meteorological Agency predicts delayed onset of rainfall and less than normal rainfall in 2016. Please stay tuned.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, there are indications that most parts of Nigeria may experience delayed onset of rainfall, early cessation, and less than normal rainfall in 2016. Presenting the year's seasonal rainfall prediction, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer, Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET, Dr. Anthony Anuforum, said the northern parts of the country will also experience dry spells. Ronke Kolawole reports on the prediction tagged the impact of weather variability and climate change in transportation, infrastructure, and agriculture in Nigeria.
In 2002 to 2012, a situation that could be attributed to rising atmospheric temperatures, which have increased evapotranspiration and consequently increased condensation, precipitation and flood in Nigeria in recent times. It also stated that despite the late onset of rain in 2015, flooding was recorded in 17 states between June and September. Looking at the pivotal role of transportation and agriculture in the implementation of the federal government's economic reform program, the 2016 seasonal rainfall prediction is focusing on the 2 sectors to probably guide against the implications of the projected weather pattern to achieve set goals.
I wish to emphasize that the provision and dissemination of full climate services is beyond the capacity of any single organization. It calls for collaboration among MDAs and across disciplinary boundaries.
The Minister of State Aviation is of the view that past mistakes must not be repeated by ignoring the early warning signs, urging all parties concerned to take necessary precautions to reduce negative impacts.
The federal government is also developing an integrated intermodal transport system, that is air, land, and water, that maximizes the transport of goods, raw materials, and people.
The Aviation Minister of State also unveiled the 2016 seasonal rainfall prediction SRP and the release of the Climate Change Review Bulletin for the year. Leading the panel of discussants on SRP as a tool for reviving agriculture as an engine for economic growth, the Minister of Agriculture said farming has stepped out of being a seasonal adventure.
It's an all-year-round activity, which means that whether it is raining or not raining, we'll continue farming using irrigation.
There were goodwill messages while participants suggested, among other issues, the possibility of using the daily weather forecast in planning national life and for NIMET to step down its information into the local languages to carry along the rural farmers. As it is, the 2016 seasonal rainfall prediction is a risk factor for farmers in affected areas. Hence, NIMET is calling for careful and scientific management. In Abuja, Ronke Kolawole, NTA News.
Katsina State is exploring opportunities in the teaching profession aimed at facilitating its youth development programs. The state's efforts came to the fore when the management team of the National Teachers Institute visited the state governor, Aminu Bello Masari, and Jibuno reports.
Plan is to enable youth in Katsina State make careers out of the teaching profession. Director General of the National Teachers Institute, Dr. Aminu Ladan Shareu, drew attention to the institute's work in Katsina State through the pivotal teacher training program. The program, he explained, prepares young secondary school leavers for the institute's NCE and degree programs in education.
To be able to sustain the partnership, we've introduced two centers for the bachelor's degree in Katsina State, one in Katsina City and one in Dora. That is to ensure that we continue to strengthen the partnership and collaboration. It is not every state that will introduce two centers for the bachelor's degree program, but Katsina State has 2 centers.
Katsina State Governor Aminu Bello Masari described the visit as the needed boost for enhanced partnership and collaboration. The visit is also expected to assist in reducing unemployment in Katsina State. Anne Jibuno, NTA News.
Polio eradication is within reach, but vaccination efforts must continue to stamp out the disease once and for all. Rotary International President Ravi Ravindran said this during his one-day visit to Rotary District 9125 in Abuja, where he administered polio vaccine on children and commissioned Rotary Polio House. Olayinka Ojo reports.
Immunization is one major public health achievement in the last century, saving millions of lives and preventing illness and lifelong disability. Commending Nigeria's vital steps for being declared polio-free without a recorded case for over 18 months, Rotary International President Ravi Ravindran said, with about a year and a half left for Nigeria to be certified a polio-free nation, the feat so far indicates that grants meant for polio immunization activities and research to end the disabling viral disease worldwide by 2018 is appropriately channeled.
The important thing is not to sit back, not to get complacent, not to think, all right, we are over the bar. You're not yet. We are on the way to success.
Reiterating that one case of polio is one case too much, past Rotary International President Jonathan Majiagbe, SAN, and Rotary District 9125 Governor Michael Motosho added that until the last infected child is immunized and free from polio, the work cannot be considered to have been completed.
Individuals should support their government to maintain routine immunization.
120 naira is the cost to prevent a child from being crippled.
Global health experts are hoping that polio can become the second human infectious disease to be eradicated after smallpox. The visit of the Rotary International President Ravi Ravindran climaxed with the commissioning of the Polio House, which will serve as a legacy after polio has been eradicated completely in Nigeria. In Abuja, Olayinka Ojo, NTA News.
Time now to check on the weather prospects for Thursday in Nigeria and major cities across the world. We do apologize for the loss of audio on the weather, and that's where we wrap up the news at this time. Thanks for staying with NTA International.